Good morning, Wrestling Inc. Happy Tuesday. That is right. It is noon Eastern here on the YouTube channel for Wrestling Inc., where we are live here recording the news segment for the WINCLY. It is me, your managing editor, Nick Hausman, and joined here, as I will be every Tuesday going forward, it is the wonderful Michael Wiseman. Michael, welcome to the WINCLY.
I appreciate that, buddy. Thank you so much. Every Tuesday. I got it right.
Yeah. Don't show
every
up
Tuesday.
Labar will be here tomorrow and Thursdays. He's Wednesday, Thursdays. But Mike, you and we're going to get to explore pro wrestling news every Tuesday. I'm stoked about it, man. I really enjoyed the work you and Fritz do with Between the Ropes. I've enjoyed chatting with you. I think we can have good chemistry here. Is what
we just gotta work on it a little bit. You know, you didn't show up as a tender match for me just yet, but if we keep this thing going, one of these days, you and I will match. I promise.
What? I have a girlfriend of like 2 years now. I'm not on Tinder. Do not say that. If she hears that, she's gonna get upset.
Well, it's not typical Tinder. You know, everybody has a podcast nowadays, so they had to create a Tinder for podcasting where you find your ideal podcast partner. It's the way it works.
Is that a real thing?
It should be, though, right? It should be.
That's a good idea.
Just came up with it right now.
That's a really good idea. Oh, man, we are starting hot here. All right, well, it is the WINCLY. We are Wrestling Inc.'s official news punditry show 3 days a week, like I said, Tuesday through Thursday, moving forward. If you're watching us live here, thank you so much. Of course, you can always find us on the Wrestling Inc. audio iTunes channel. Go over there, subscribe. You'll get the full audio of this. And if you listen on iTunes, you listen to the podcast-only version, you get bonus audio. And today, big piece of bonus audio. After Michael and I wrap up talking the news, I have an exclusive half-hour interview with the man who has dropped his new book today. It is DDP. DDP is going to be on the show here later, Michael. Very exciting.
Does he talk about DDP yoga? That's
yeah. we talk about DDP yoga, but of course, DDP was in Cody's corner at All In.
Sure. In the run-in fest that was that match. You're exactly right. I remember that.
He dropped a diamond cutter there. Ray Lloyd was also in Cody's corner, better known as Glacier. So I asked DDP about the launch of AEW being at All In. So you don't just get, and I did read this 300-plus page book to do the interview, so you're going to get to hear about the book for sure. I did not do that for naught. But you're also going to get to hear his take on some pretty cool news stories going on right now at the moment. So stay tuned. If you're listening here on YouTube, go over, listen on iTunes, find that interview. And if you're listening on iTunes, thank you very much. Tell a friend to subscribe. I got more news. I got another announcement, but I'm going to save it for the end of the show. It is about the Royal Rumble and a party I'm hosting here in Chicago, but we'll save that for the end.
Am I invited? That's the real question. Am I invited to your party?
Oh, Mike, if you can get to Chicago, buddy, you're invited.
You know, I was making bi-yearly trips to Chicago for a couple of years there. It was awesome. It's a great city. I love Chicago.
Dude, all of my friends in the past 2 years that were wrestling friends have become wrestling journalists because of the work that I do. So there's a healthy community here in Chicago of wrestling journalists. If you'd like to come hang out, we all do it now. It's bizarre how it all ants marching kind of deal. But let's get to the news here today. The big story leading off this morning, Wrestling Observer clarifying why Braun Strowman was pulled from the Royal Rumble main event against Brock Lesnar, where he was set to face off for the Universal Championship. Apparently, this decision was not a knee-jerk last-minute decision. The plan had been to change the match for a while. Apparently, Vince saw Braun was cooling off at Crown Jewel. He also saw he was injured. He didn't want to have him beat so quickly here, as they do have long-term plans for Braun. Finn Balor was the man chosen to replace Braun Strowman. He got the win last night. Big. John Cena put him over big at the end of the show. And apparently the reasoning here is Braun likes to work with opponents like Finn Balor. He's enjoyed his matches with AJ Styles. And it looks like longer-term plan here is at WrestleMania to have Brock versus Seth Rollins for the Universal title at WrestleMania. Still the plan. So, they knew they knew they were going to pull this move. But they apparently in the same report here said they didn't want to worry about slowing down ticket sales by pulling this match too quickly. What do you think about the way they handled removing Braun from this match? And what do you think of Finn Balor as his replacement, Mike?
I think it's about 2 weeks too late. I mean, I think it's great. It's awesome. Let me say that. I'm not dismissing the idea. It's fantastic. This is what I expected last week, really. I mean, when you say you're going to do a brand new refresh, reboot, get the fans what they want, That was what I had in mind. Finn Balor he's the wrestler of the people here, right? He's the one the fans have gotten behind, despite the fact that he is not Vince McMahon's prototypical guy. And the fact that they went this direction is awesome. It had me excited. I like the storyline change. I think it's weird. It's about a limo and Vince McMahon and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But you could, but you can tell the fans got behind Finn last night. And honestly, here's the thing about it, right? Love Braun Strowman to death. He's a big guy. He's got that he's got his character down pat. But Braun Strowman has always felt like the guy that we came to accept because we're like, we will take him. He is the Vince McMahon prototype, but he's the one we can stomach as opposed to some of the other ones which we reject. And I think Finn really does feel like that more organic, fresh face, fresh change. And I think the matchup with Brock has a lot of potential. I loved what Daniel Bryan and Brock did last year. I love what AJ Styles and Brock did. So Finn and Brock could be a lot of fun. Obviously, Brock's going to go over, I think. But it's a true underdog babyface. We didn't even get that with Bryan last year. So I think it's a great dynamic here.
I agree with you. It's just a little weird to me that they're just now getting back behind Finn like this. And, they've heated him up the past couple of weeks. He was, even before the Fresh Start Initiative, he was the Bugs Bunny to the Daffy Duck that was Baron Corbin there. And, between that and then over the past couple of weeks, through this Fresh Start, getting that renewed push, make of it what you will, that AEW is just happening to launch at the same time right now. And all these Bullet Club guys are all of a sudden a lot more of a center of attention. I'm with you. I'm excited to see this bout, but it does, seem like this is just filler, right? For Brock to get to WrestleMania where he's going to do the business with Seth Rollins. This could be a good match. It could also be a total massacre. It could be a slaughter.
It could be. It could be. I mean, they could have done that with Daniel Bryan, and they didn't. They found ways to work around it. So I think there's still potential. I'm okay with the long-term booking, also because I think at some point it leads us back to Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor for the Universal Championship, and that is a feud and a match I can get behind.
Well, also on Monday Night Raw last night, there were a couple other news items coming out of the show. We were just chatting about Seth Rollins. He was involved in an Intercontinental triple threat match with Bobby Lashley and Dean Ambrose, and lo and behold, new Intercontinental champion, Bobby Lashley. I mean, Dean and Seth really did not need to have a title on the line. I think this is a great way to wean Seth out of that IC title picture. And, I'm kind of 70-30 with Bobby Lashley, Lio Rush. Like, I largely enjoy them, but I still think there's there's too much stupid shtick still involved in their routine that I wish they would iron out and focus more on Lashley as, just this monster powerhouse.
Sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved the celebration. Bobby Lashley grabbing the belt and running around with it like it is his prize. But keep in mind, this guy's a former world champion in Impact Wrestling, big name. But he celebrated and put it over so much winning that championship. The announce team did a great job. First time ever for him winning this belt. So I thought it was a fun moment. He's the right guy, especially as we're talking about kind of having a babyface challenging Brock for the Universal Championship down the line this month at the pay-per-view. Putting the gold on Bobby Lashley is a good choice. Bobby Lashley has needed something. An Intercontinental title reign could do a lot for him with this new persona, him and Lio Rush.
And that's the thing is when they originally brought Lashley back and they weren't really doing anything with him and he was just bland Bobby Lashley, it really wasn't clicking with people. They had him turn heel. They paired him with Lio Rush. He was talking out of his butt, literally, for a little while there, Ace Ventura style. But you could tell they were trying things out, right? And now that, again, I'm 70-30, I wish there's still some more shtick they'd bang out of it.
Sure.
But with him having a very good mouthpiece, there seems to be good chemistry there. With that IC title, I'm with you, man. I think this is the most compelling Bobby Lashley has been on WWE TV in a long time. I'm interested to see how far they take it with him.
He is a monster, and you've got to, that shtick stuff does take him back a few pegs every time. Lio Rush is the kind of guy you need. Bobby Lashley should not be his own mouthpiece, as has been proven, but just the size, the physique really does drive home that he is a monster. I love the finish of this match where he hits, number one, that was a great match. Let's not discount this. Those three men put on a spectacular showing last night, but number two, hitting the spear out of nowhere and just kind of demolishing Dean Ambrose was really a great heel moment for him. So it's a good thing for him.
There were fresh faces. There were fresh faces, I should say, on WWE Raw last night. We're starting to see this new talent coming up from NXT. Nikki Cross, let's start there. I thought she looked great. The crowd was digging her. Very different energy than the other women she was in the ring with. Of those that debuted last night, I thought that she was far and away the most successful.
Well, they gave her the biggest spotlight, and I think that helps. I mean, you had EC3 there, and he's kind of in a backstage segment, and we can talk about War Machine, all that stuff. But I think that her position coming out there and kind of being spotlighted in a longer segment gave her time to breathe. This is a weird character for the fans who watch the women's division to kind of accept. She's so totally different, but you got to see all the different facets of her character in action. And so you kind of start feeling that. The video packages have definitely helped us get to this moment, but I'm glad they spotlighted her. I'm worried that she could get lost on the main roster with so much talent they have right now, but I'm less worried about it after last night.
Yeah, Nikki, I felt good about, but you're right. They gave her a spotlight. They gave her a chance to actually shine. And I feel like each of these talents should have had more of an opportunity like that. It's weird that they all kind of got pushed out of the nest here all at the same time on the same show, except for Lars, who we'll get to in just a little bit. But Nikki looked good. Lacey was just backstage, to the best of my knowledge, right? Just kind of a quick.
Yeah.
EC3 was just waiting in line to talk to Mr. McMahon, flexed his pecs. I was like, what is happening? What? Why? Right?
It's like the guerrilla debuts of all these characters, right? It's like you're waiting week after week, and all of a sudden, there they are, just backstage wandering around.
Man, EC3 is like bred for WWE main roster right now. He's got that look. He's got that confidence. He's good on the mic. I didn't get this at all. I mean, him and Lacey definitely deserve better. Now, I put up on social media, I didn't really like the way they debuted Otis in the Moment of Bliss segment, which we can get to now. Heavy Machinery, him and Tucker with the weird kind of pop-up, like what's going on here, as Alexa was at the same time debuting the women's tag titles, and Paul Heyman is putting over this upcoming match with Finn and Brock. A lot going all at the same time. I just didn't like it because, yes, I get it. They are comedy characters in NXT. I do watch NXT. I'm very familiar with Heavy Machinery, but you only get one chance to make a first impression. And if the audience's first impression is these guys are silly, non-threat, where are the stakes for that? Where do you take it? Like, even if you're a comedy act, I would prefer there to be some grit or edge to your debut, some mysteriousness to it, a seriousness to it. Even when Dolph and Elias were just backstage, ominously kind of walking around, you knew there was something to those guys. This, to me, right out of the gate, feels a little too silly for me, especially for guys that are, brawny in their way. I just think it could have been a little bit stronger. And again, when you're already announcing the women's tag titles the first time, you already got Paul there. Just too much going on for me. I think a lot of this stuff could have breathed and been given its own moments.
I want to talk about the Alexa Bliss stuff here in a second, but I think to your point about Heavy Machinery, their name implies some level of doom and gloom. They have the physique for it. They can be badass in the ring, right? And yet they're kind of being relegated to being slapstick characters. And once you go that route, it is 10 times harder to give them any kind of credible storyline that involves them going after gold. Now, comedy can work. I think you look back at what Heath Slater and Rhino did a few years ago. They were totally comedic characters that the fans got behind because of the way they were booked. Once you go this far in the slapstick territory, and once you make that their calling card the very first time the general audience sees them, you're going to lose people. Also, this whole segment was weird. I think I like the idea of Alexa Bliss and Paul Heyman up there on the stage. I think it's great. I love the Alexa Bliss talk show being on the stage. It's a cool little setup. Yeah. But you led into this with a really terrible, weird segment of a backstage guy accidentally walking in on Alexa Bliss undressing, which very much felt. Yeah, it felt like a throwback to the Attitude Era or TV14 era, where it was like, look, we're treating her like a sex object. And then you Knicks go into this moment where there was so much going on here with Paul Heyman and the tag team titles. I think the women's tag team titles were the unfortunate victim of this entire thing in what should have been a much bigger moment. It's Santa Vince all over again, really.
You're right. And it is weird how they have been slipping some more Attitude Era stuff in here. Yeah, there was like the little, you're going to see Alexa Bliss naked kind of deal here. There's been other stuff too. I don't know. I get it. There's new sharks swimming in the water. You're trying to claim your territory and everything. But I don't know. It did 1.4 million views on YouTube, I guess, right before I went live here. I saw that. So at least there's interest, I guess.
But you've worked for years to shed this kind of chicanery, right? This is what you've worked so hard to get away from, so you can have Golden Crisp as your sponsors. Why go back to it? You don't need to.
Well, again, it's like, what's the interest level? Live attendance is down, viewership is down, TV. You've got, again, Impact is willing to go edgier. AEW, what are these guys going to do before you lose the market on that kind of material? maybe this is their way of laying claim a little bit, is by sprinkling some of it throughout the show. So
Yeah,
I mean,
could be.
that's where my headspace was at, when I think about it. Let's switch gears here. Well, before we do, let's finish talking on the women's tag titles. They did officially debut it last night. WWE World's Women Tag Team Championships. It sounds like these belts are going to be defended across brands, right? This didn't seem like they're gonna have two belts.
They're going to have one series of champions, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be, the winner will be decided in a 6-women tag team elimination chamber match after the Royal Rumble, correct?
Yes, and 3 teams, or they say 3 teams is what they mentioned. Did they say 4 teams?
I think it's 6 teams. I think
it's 6 teams. Okay.
They've done 6-person tag matches in the past.
Yeah,
6 teams where you put 2 of them in the pod at the same time. I know that's happened.
I'm just not good at math. Is the problem? That's the real problem.
So I would guess, after the Rumble here, good. I'm glad they're planting the seeds for this and making it feel important like that. They're going to be building into this elimination chamber match to crown these first ever women champions. So it'll be a great vine to swing from, on Monday Night Raw, the night after the Rumble, and we'll see who qualifies. Now, the other bit of news here, we talked about all the fresh faces making their debuts on Monday Night Raw. One we have not seen yet, which is kind of surprising, is Lars Sullivan. The Observer reporting the plan for Lars was to face John Cena at WrestleMania. I guess that's kind of up in the air right now, because this is a weird story. Lars Sullivan either left early or did not show up to Raw or SmackDown last week, where he was set to debut, due to anxiety issues. Which, look, my brain's not so great. I know a lot of other people that, deal with all kinds of other mental issues and stuff. Anxiety is heavy, right? And I would love to talk to this guy about how bad is it to be turning down your TV debut alongside John Cena? I mean, and if he can't do it right out of the gate, what does this say about the long-term future of Lars? Obviously, it doesn't paint a pretty picture.
It's one of those situations. It reminds me a lot of what happened with Mauro Ranallo a few years ago and his mental health struggles. And real life really does incapacitate these larger than life superstars sometimes. And it's a real thing. You think about somebody like Lars Sullivan, he is truly a larger than life guy. He is a monster. And you think about anxiety as being a part of that, and it really humanizes your image of him. And to me, it's got to be serious if he's turning down. He's worked his whole life for last week's moment. If he is turning that down at this stage, it's got to be a real serious thing. Now, it's that constant struggle that we have where pro wrestling, football, all of these things historically have been a tough guys thing, right? You go into this, you get a concussion, you just play on. You never show weakness. And we're in a different age here in 2019. We're worried about concussions. We're worried about mental health. And so to me, it's like, how as a company does WWE respond to this? Lars Sullivan had the road in front of him. And he had to pull himself out of that. Is WWE going to be gun shy in the future about this? We had the same conversation about Daniel Bryan. Were they going to be gun shy about Bryan and giving a belt to him because he had injuries and concussions before? They weren't. But I always worry in a situation like this, will Vince McMahon be a little less likely to get behind them due to an incident like this? Not that I think they should, right? I think there's a lot to work out here. And the question is, are there things Lars can do to work through it? Can he show that this is just kind of a thing that will pop up from time to time, but they can work around? I don't know. I'm not in his headspace. And I think, we definitely should be sympathetic to him as well for whatever he's struggling with at this point.
Tough spot, man. There's a guy, TJ Jagodowski, here in Chicago. You guys may know him better as one of the 2 guys from the Sonic commercials that are always in the car together.
Which one is he?
He's the taller blonde guy.
Oh, yeah.
So TJ, believe it or not, is probably one of the greatest improv comedians on the face of the planet. Him and his partner Dave, TJ and Dave, have toured the whole world doing improv. TJ suffers from a weird form of vertigo where if he feels like too many people are looking at him, he spins and he passes out. And he was offered an SNL gig years ago, I'm told, and had to turn it down because he medically wouldn't be able to perform an SNL. And if you see him and Dave now, they perform in 50 to 80 person cabarets that are dimly lit, and there's a reason for that. So it's unfortunate stories. I just thought I'd share that one because it kind of reminded me of what's going on with Lars. And sometimes you do lose opportunities, unfortunately, because of just your makeup. And I would hate to see that happen here with Lars. But if you can't make plans, if you can't book a guy, if you can't tell a story, what do you do with him? Does he remain an NXT draw, which he would be great at? So I don't know.
It's a thing for me where I always like to remind people everybody's path and what success looks like is very different from person to person, right? To all of us, we're seeing this a situation where Lars missed out on a huge opportunity, which I think is true. However, if he can find the right niche that allows him to balance his mental health, maybe it is NXT, whatever it is, and his professional career and still maintain some level of success, that might be the right fit for him. Not everybody has to be the top of the card world champion traveling 52 weeks a year.
Send him over to the UK. Have him just beat up the UK division for a while.
They got Walter for that. We're good. We're good.
Oh, dude, Walter. Yeah, I didn't actually put that on the sheet here because I haven't watched the NXT UK takeover show. I have to watch it today.
Spoiler. Sorry, my bad.
No, I know what happened. I saw the Walter bit. I saw him lay out that kid with that huge chop. Man, let's just stop and take a second here because we're about to jump into our updates and returns and signing segment of the show anyway. Walter is officially with WWE, confronted Pete Dunne at the end of TakeOver. Holy hell, this man looks like a superstar on screen. I mean, this is why you keep the title on Pete Dunne for 600 days or whatever.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that when this guy finally comes along, the one thing Pete Dunne can't beat, the story means so much more, Michael.
Well, listen, top to bottom, kudos to those NXT UK cats. They put on a heck of a show the other day. If you haven't watched it, go out of your way to go watch it. It was totally worthwhile. I think it was very under the radar here in America, but it really did once you kind of got into it. Like, it was an incredible show. But that final segment between Walter and Pete Dunne, it was electric in a way. And I just love the fact that Pete Dunne is this tinier dude, and he is just like, oh, hell no, I'm going to stand here and I'm going to stare you down. I'm not afraid of anything. I am the champion. And it says so much about both of these characters without saying anything at all.
That's going to be the feud to put the NXT UK program on the map, because I'm going to go out of my way to seek out Walter and Pete Dunne. And before that, it was like Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, amazing match. I think it was like a year and a half ago in Chicago. Really no follow up to it. So happy to see Walter in the mix. Yeah, him and Dunn, what great chemistry. I agree with you. The visual there was just awesome. Other recovery updates, every type of news. PW Insider reporting Sami Zayn, Sin Cara, and a handful of others have been spotted down at the Performance Center recovering. Of course, Sami Zayn, they're already running commercials or vignettes saying his return is going to be imminent. But we've also heard him on Jericho's show saying he's not so close. He's taken the Daniel Bryan path on social media and is really just taking on some advocacy. I would think that him and Daniel Bryan would be a natural fit for each other on the main roster when he comes back. That's what I want to see, at least. Right?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I think the fans would get behind it. It would really have a certain level of indie credibility to it that I think would fight up against AEW, if you want to say. That's a great kind of feud to put up against that, but or pairing to put up against that. But Sami Zayn, I think he's been out longer than any of us expect. I'm not worried about it, though. I think Sami Zayn, listen, everybody was worried that when they brought him up to the main roster, they wouldn't do anything with him. Look at what Sami Zayn has been able to do. And he's had great feuds with Kevin Owens. He was put up against Bobby Lashley. They've done a lot with him. So I feel pretty confident that when he does come back, he'll be able to regain his spot pretty quickly.
I hope so. We'll talk about regaining a spot quickly. We'll see if Alexa Bliss can do that. She was at the Ace Comic-Con in Arizona. She said she's very close to a return. She's noted how difficult it is to identify those concussion symptoms. When are you really cured? It's not really something you can see, like a broken arm. So we have an update about that for her. Also, Trevor Lee announced at CWF Mid-Atlantic, former Impact Wrestling superstar Trevor Lee, that he has officially signed with WWE. Great signing here. I love Trevor Lee's work in Impact Wrestling. I know that he rolls deep with the Hardys as well, so didn't catch me too off guard to see him in the mix, but he doesn't look like your traditional WWE guy. This is a caveman that's going to be taking over WWE. I'm stoked.
Number one, super excited because he is a North Carolina original, just like the Hardy Boys. And as representing here in C, like I love these guys. It was his show this weekend was a CWF show here in the Carolinas. So it's awesome. Trevor Lee is a unique guy. He's a unique cat, hard worker. He's young. He's got the right connections in the biz. He's proven that he can go in the ring. I think what they do with him in NXT is going to be really interesting. I hope they lean into his unique look and do something with him. NXT tends to do this, but I love it. I think it's a great hire, and I think it feels like one of those hires that WWE, listen, Trevor Lee's great. I think he's still a couple of years out from being really awesome. And I think what NXT and WWE is trying to do here is grab him up before he gets to that next level with Ring of Honor, and then AEW or whoever else wants to pay him bigger money.
Man, and on that note, what a great segue here. Shawn Michaels was talking to Sky Sports Lockup podcast, and he was putting over how much he's enjoying working down in developmental, training guys like Trevor Lee. Isn't that crazy to think about? A guy like Trevor Lee with all that talent, right? And you're talking about, oh, he needs that right kind of polish. Who better to mentor Trevor Lee than Shawn Michaels, Mike? That's where we're at right now in wrestling, you know?
God, it's so fantastic. Shawn Michaels is by many considered to be one of the greatest performers of all time. And I love this fit for Shawn Michaels. I can't tell you how much. Everybody wants to see him back in the ring, and he says, no, I'm done with that.
Yeah, he's done.
It's awesome to have him in developmental. You don't understand. Listen, I'm a fan of Shawn Michaels, but knowing he will influence the next generation of superstars that come into the ring has me so excited. So excited.
Yeah, I heard he got something like 10 million for the crown jewel match he had with Hunter or something like that. Some ridiculous sum of money where he nearly killed himself doing that moonsault to the outside.
He's not. Listen, you can have him back tomorrow, next week, next month in the ring. He'll never be the Shawn Michaels he was 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right?
No, well, he doesn't have any hair anymore. You know, like he can't. You can't go back. You can't
change that sexy boy music to what is it? Retirement boy.
Yeah. Well, we have some highlights from Shawn's chat with Sky Sports up over on Wrestling Inc. But yes, he did say he's enjoying his time in developmental, but not looking to wrestle. And if you're looking to watch NXT, good news for you. WWE signed a new deal with Endeavor Streaming. So they're switching streaming providers that host the WWE Network. I'll read you the statement here on the move here from WWE. Endeavor Streaming's best in-class technology enables us to offer more features, elevate the user experience, and provide us even more opportunity to delight our fans around the world. I know that Lavi Margolin, who writes for Wrestling Inc. now, is going to be diving a little bit deeper into exactly what this means on the business end, but it seems good on the surface here that they would be upping their provider.
Who else does that provider service? Does the release say?
I'd have to go back. I don't remember on the release. Yeah.
It's an interesting choice. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I know their current provider, BAMTech, I think, was working with Major League Baseball, which is,
right.
You know.
Well, and if you could go back to 5 years ago when the network debuted or however long it was, when they debuted the network, MLB was one of the few other services to have their own live sports streaming. MLB got out there early. WWE got out there early. It made a sense. The network game is totally different. Here we are in 2019. So it must be a good choice for WWE. There are still some weird kinks we get sometimes. Must be a good business decision. I like it.
Yeah, and again, watch the site. We're going to have Lavi taking a deeper dive into exactly what the story means. But before we throw to DDP, let's talk about AEW. How are we going to start our WINCLY week without a deep dive into all things AEW? So first of all, Chris Jericho was chatting with WSVN TV. He did say that he's been in group chats with Roman Reigns, first of all, and said that Roman seems to be recovering well. So I thought I'd put that out there. But he also said that when he made the decision to sign with AEW, he did talk to Vince about it. He told Vince about it and apparently did not adversely affect their relationship. I find that somewhat difficult to believe. He said similar things when he originally showed up in New Japan, remember? And was like, oh, Vince, at a certain point, I would think that Vince is not happy with Chris continuing to work elsewhere other than WWE, But
it kind of echoes the same things that they said the conversations with, Triple H had with the Young Bucks and Cody, and that all that stuff kind of came out, and everybody was like, there weren't any bridges burnt. I think at a certain point, this is a business, and Vince McMahon is a businessman. And I think while there is that personal relationship, if Chris Jericho is as open with Vince as he says he is, Vince can only do so. I mean, it's as simple as this. Vince, listen, I want to be representing a new company, and Vince says, I already got my card full right now. That's not, keep in mind, they brought Jericho back last year for the Greatest Royal Rumble after he was doing his New Japan thing already. So that kind of stuff gets funky because it's business, but I take him at his word.
Yeah, and but Vince and Hunter and WWE, they lost, right? They didn't get the Bucks and Kenny,
right,
and Cody and all of this. Or Jericho. So that's why I say it's like, great, I get it. Publicly, everybody's shaking hands. I was at the AEW rally. I remember Cody looking at us directly in the face as the press when he was talking about how Joey Janela could still do Joey Janela's spring break and saying, we want to be friends with everybody.
Sure.
We want to be friends with everybody. But these guys only have 2 shows in 9 months. Of course they want to be friends with everybody. Their workers got to work somewhere. You know,
but this is the whole thing about why they're bringing back the X, or why Vince McMahon is bringing back the XFL. You always want what you want, and if you get it, that's great. But it leads to complacency. The fact that, to your point, they lost here means they're going to go and they're going to be that much more competitive. So sometimes, if you're a creative individual or a business individual, whatever else, sometimes when you lose, it drives you that much further. And I think that's what we're going to have here.
Well, some other updates here about AEW, all of which came from the Wrestling Observer, either radio or newsletter in the past 4 or 5 days. Alex Marvez from SiriusXM, who co-hosted the rally with Conrad Thompson, apparently looks like he's likely to be a commentator for AEW. On the notes, you brought up the contracts there. Hangman Page's offer from WWE apparently was to go work in NXT for a deal that would see him making main roster money, but they were looking at him for NXT. Now, the Bucks apparently were offered a deal similar to AJ Styles, where I guess they'd go right to the main roster, make that money, and they would also be allowed to put Being the Elite on the WWE Network. Now, this was an interesting offer here from Hunter, who was very hands-on with it. Apparently, he talked with the Bucks and these guys for like 12 hours, couldn't make a deal. He said, we have a 6-month window where if you're unhappy with the way you're treated at WWE for whatever reason, you could terminate the contract, which was I've never heard anything like that.
That's bizarre.
But at the same time, it's like, okay, you get through that 6 months. What happens at the 7th month?
Sure.
If all of a sudden you become unhappy, you know?
Well, it almost seems like if you're the Bucks too, you can take advantage of that and show up for 6 months and then go back and still do AEW. But that's kind of burning a bridge at that point.
Well, while the negotiations with Hunter didn't work out, apparently Hunter did enjoy the Being the Elite segments where Kazarian was playing him and he gets super kicked and laid out several times. So again, we're all shaking hands. We're all having so much fun, even if we're not all necessarily doing this business that each other wants us to be doing. And with that, Kenny Omega apparently has also turned down a WWE offer that was very generous. I've read what I've read in Dave's bits about, the generous offer. I've also heard just through my own, because I was out on the road talking to a lot of people. I can't confirm this because I'm not Kenny, but I heard they made him a very large offer in regards to their video game department because he really loves video games.
Sure.
So these offers, I would love to see what they were, because I know they were very inventive. But according to Dave here, Kenny's contract is up at the end of January. He's going to do the rest of the next New Japan show. Or no, he's off the next New Japan show. He's not. It's Kushida who's facing Tanahashi. But Kenny is going to be done with New Japan February 1st. He's not going to WWE and looks likely to be another feather in the cap of AEW. He's going with his friends. I'm not shocked by that.
I'm not entirely either. I think there was potential for Kenny Omega to show up and change the game in WWE. Also, though, when you've seen WWE for the last couple of years, it makes these guys gun shy. I think it's crazy to me that WWE is offering these kind of inventive deals. You mentioned Hangman Page possibly going to NXT for main roster money, putting Being the Elite on the WWE Network, Kenny Omega getting a sweetheart deal and video game stuff in there. Yeah. All of that's crazy because a few years ago, WWE was like, here's our offer, take it or don't. We don't care. And I think it says something about where WWE is, especially with Hunter steering the ship a little bit differently. But then again, these guys love their independence. They crave building and reinventing the game and doing something new. And so it's all lining up the way that I think Cody and the Bucks have envisioned for quite some time now.
Yeah, man, it's all catching up, I've always looked at power as waves, man. Some days it's coming in, some days it's coming out, and that's why, in the business of wrestling, they always say, be good to the people on the way up, because when you're on the way down or the tides change, you never know who you're going to want to have been good friends with to
absolutely
forward.
They must have a good TV deal too. That's what I'm going to say too. Kenny Omega turning down WWE deal. AEW's got to have something lined up. I mean, you've heard the rumors from Ross and everybody else, but they've got to have something there that says Kenny Omega's like, all right, I can put up not being on TV every week if I'm going to be over there instead.
Well, I'm about to, we're going to go to DDP here in just a second. But regards to TV, I have another interview I'm dropping tomorrow on the WINCLY that I haven't announced yet. And I've already got it in the can, so I know I'm releasing it. Do you know who I got to interview yesterday or Friday?
Give me a hint.
Well, they're related to Cody Rhodes. It's his brother.
Okay.
It's Goldust. I interviewed Dustin Rhodes. I got access to Dustin, and we were going to play. It's really good. He talks all the AEW stuff. It's very good. But the reason we're releasing the DDP interview today is because DDP's new book dropped today. But tomorrow, if you tune back in and you're still listening, you're going to get this Goldust interview. But in the interview,
I will not be here tomorrow, though. I was told that. Don't be here tomorrow. Don't show up to work. Yeah.
No, but in the Goldust interview that I'm dropping tomorrow, and I'll give a little bit of a tease here, He says, I hope they get a TV deal, as in it was not a done deal yet. So, again, this AEW thing, for as much as I know that they've got in the tank, money, connections, talent, it's still very much the Wild West from I've picked up here. I don't know that they have a set TV deal. I don't know that they have a set roster. Their contracts seem pretty flexible where their guys still get to work everywhere. So I think there's a lot up in the air in regards to AEW. Lastly here, though, news-wise, we'll get to final thoughts here at the end. But Ring of Honor did Honor Reign Supreme over the weekend. We can confirm that Flip Gordon and Chris Sabin were both injured on that show. We don't know the extent of those injuries, but big blow to ROH. Start the year off, man. Flip Gordon is a franchise player for them. And when I heard he went down, that's not good, man. They're in the process of rebuilding the roster and their identity, and they can't be losing guys like Flip or Chris too. I mean, but right. Chris is more of a mainstay with Ring of Honor.
Well, and it's guys like that. They were kind of building the new people around guys who had got a lot of heat coming out of not a heat, but a lot of momentum, I should say, a fire heat coming out of 2018 to 2019. Yeah. And I think that losing somebody like that has a much bigger impact at this stage when there's so much other positive going on around them with AEW, even with WWE right now. So it's fascinating. Big loss.
I will definitely tell you to go back into the WINCLY archives here. Find my interview with Bully Ray about his match with Flip Gordon. It was great. Awesome to hear. And I hope Flip recovers very quickly. He is needed on the Ring of Honor roster. All right. Well, it's time for if you're listening right now on the podcast version over on iTunes, you're about to hear an interview with DDP. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Me and Mike will be back at the end of the show. And thank you very much, DDP, for coming on. Isn't that great, Mike?
Awesome.
Wow, time.
Great interview. That was a great. It's so fast. It just flew by.
So fast that interview with DDP went. Go catch his book. It is out now today, and it's awesome. Like I said, you get to learn to exercise, eat better. You still have a beer, and there's a lot of cool stories in there about his life on the road. So go check it out. One more time, the WINCLY is going live Tuesday through Thursday, right here, noon Eastern. Tuesdays with Michael Wiseman, Wednesday, Thursday with Justin LeBar. Come back in. We'll always be featuring exclusive audio. Like I said, we've got Gold Dust on tomorrow's show. Thursday's show is going to feature Brody King. And we've also got all kinds of interviews I still got on the road from Tessa Blanchard, LAX, receiving their Wrestling Inc. 2018 awards. So anything can happen here. Maybe we'll run a contest. Who knows? I did promise you an announcement at the end of the show about a party I'm hosting here in Chicago. It's going to be at Duffy's Bar and Grill. Now, if you've been coming to those parties for the past year, we typically bring in a big name, but with me starting the new job and being on the road, we didn't quite get it together. So it's going to be a completely free event. You can come party with me, my buddy Ross Berman at Duffy's. We got 50 big HD flat screen TVs. They're all going to be showing the Royal Rumble. We'll probably play a game where everybody can drink and watch the Rumble. I don't know. It's gonna be ridiculous.
It's called Go to the Bar and Drink a Beer.
Come drink with Nick Hausman. Watch the Royal Rumble at Duffy's in Chicago. That'll be going on. Doors will open at like 4:00, I think, for that. Also, I want to thank the good folks at Game Changer Wrestling. They let me host their party bus for their 400 Degree show this past weekend, and I had a great time on the bus getting drunk with GCW fans. And lastly, I wanted to put over your piece. 5 times WWE has hit the reset button over on Wrestling Inc. Great piece, Michael. It has generated a lot of discussion. Real quickly, I thought I'd give you a moment here to talk about that and why people should go seek it out.
Well, I did a lot of research, and as far as digging back into, we all know WWE's reset itself a number of times over the years, but kind of looking back on those, in this moment now where WWE just hit the reset button again a few weeks ago, kind of seeing what the impact and fallout from all those moments were. And it was really surprising to me how they really are up front sometimes. They're like, you know what, we're changing direction. They let the fans know we're going somewhere different. It's very over the top and kind of in your face, but it was a lot of fun to kind of go down that memory lane and say, oh yeah, I do things I'd forgotten, things about Donald Trump being the owner of Raw for a hot minute, owner used in quotes. Yeah. So check that piece out. Some fun clips on there. Kind of if you're an old school wrestling fan, you've been watching it for 20 years, it's kind of a great way to remember how far we've come as a wrestling business, both in better and worse on WWE. And one time, WCW did it too.
Well, what are you working on for this week? I know you've got more in the tank as well. You want to give anybody a tease on new content?
Well, yeah, and actually I want to tie it into one final thought about Raw last night. And I just want to say that Raw last night was much improved. I think it's the reset button I was expecting a few weeks ago. It wasn't a fantastic show from top to bottom, but They did something different, which is they gave a lot of the segments, what I always like to call, they gave it stakes. There was a reason for the guys to be out there and fighting each other, more than just, oh, I don't like you. You know, you take that final segment, it was an Intercontinental Championship match, and then there was a Universal Championship match on the line. Stakes matter in professional wrestling. And so what I'm diving into is something that came out last week in the AEW stuff, something that was mentioned, but nobody's really talked a whole lot about, and that is Cody Rhodes said wins and losses are going to matter in AEW. I think that could be a potential game changer. We've seen this before. We've seen it from other wrestling organizations. We've seen it overseas. But what could that look like for an American promotion? And how could that influence the professional wrestling landscape, especially across all these indies working together? Well, I'm going to take a look at that this week.
All right, man, that is exciting. And of course, as you put over Raw, SmackDown is tonight. We will have coverage on the site immediately after SmackDown is over. Come back here to the Wrestling Inc. YouTube channel. Raj, Matt, and Glenn will be here reviewing the show. You could chime in as well. I'm Nick Hausman at Wink Rebel over on Twitter. Mike, where do you want to send people to find you, follow you?
Best place to follow me is on Twitter. I am Michael Wiseman, Michael A. Wiseman. I'm at The Real Wiseman on Twitter.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you tomorrow at noon Eastern here with Justin LaBar. And remember, if you winked, you didn't miss it.